Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, the second part of the 1956 Topps conversation with Matt Galvin and Rich Klein. Thanks, sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So here it is. Do you mess around with whitebacks and graybacks? Because the graybacks are considerably tougher on the first series, but considerably easier on the second series.
Yeah, I've got a mix of both the white and graybacks. I'm not preferential towards either. To be really honest, I don't know a whole lot about the production of the white versus the gray, and that'd be a great homework assignment to do some research on those different series and understand the rarity between those two different backs.
Rich, you're good at pushing back if you don't agree with me, but I think it's 80-20.
I think you got the scarcities correct.
No, I absolutely do, but I'm saying I think it's 80-20 and 20-80. I think there's 4 times as many whitebacks as graybacks in the first series and 4 times as many graybacks as whitebacks on the second series.
Rabbit hole, Jim, for a second. Jim, you're talking about that 50th issue with Roberto Clemente on the cover, a beautiful cover.
Yes.
How come that magazine took so long to sell? It was like the least popular magazine of that era for a long time. And then one day it was like, wait a second, why are we having a run on this? It's gone. Is there any reason what took so long for that particular issue to really finally get people's attention?
You mean in terms of back issue sales?
Yes.
2 possibilities. One is we may have, which again is against everything I stand for, but I didn't make every little decision. And it's possible that they were produced a little bit higher because of the commemorative nature of the cover, which I wouldn't have been for, but maybe our production managers just goosed it up a little bit for that. And secondly, Roberto Clemente ain't signing any autographs anymore. And so nobody was buying it to get it autographed. But that's the only thing I can think of, Rich, because it was a beautiful cover. And Roberto has always had a following.
Because in the back of my memory, I remember when I first got to Beckett, then all of a sudden one day we're getting explosive orders on that magazine. It's like it went from 0 to 60 in terms of the back issue sales. So it was just a funny thing. Maybe that's the type of thing with 56. It also has to grow on you. So I'm actually making an insight there where 56s really has to grow on you to realize what a beautiful set it was.
Is it possible that the Yankee Fantasy cover, which I think was a number 100, that when we did a second art cover, that generated interest in issue number 50?
I think you're right too, yeah.
Because that also was a landmark. It was a big expense for us. Actually, I don't know they call it expense, but investment, because I actually have the art and I love the art.
You've got the cartoons on the back. The more I read those, the more they're fascinating. Even just reading things like on Hank Aaron's card specifically, on the cartoons, I love that it calls him a freshman and 54. Says, as a freshman in 54, you hit a homer in every NL park. And so there's just these little amazing little factoids I'm fascinated by. What's really interesting is on the front, you've got Aaron's face. Most collectors would know that it's Willie Mays sliding in on the image in the background.
I never realized this with the Aaron hitting homers in every ballpark. You realize that's 8 different ballparks to hit homers in, which for Aaron doesn't sound like a lot, except in 54, his rookie year, he only hits 13 homers. So really spread that out to all the ballparks. That's a pretty good percent of your homers. 1 per ballpark is pretty impressive. He was not really Hank Aaron as a home run hitter for the next couple of years, but his rookie year, his freshman year, he's spreading it out. He also breaks his ankle the last month of the season, so he probably loses a couple homers in September as well. 56 is an interesting year. You also have the Larson perfect game card, which a lot of people like to collect. And Larson's in the last series. So when we're talking about the last series, you got Larson there too. Not that he's a Hall of Famer, but it's a Hall of Fame game.
Okay, getting back to the Brooks and Frank thing, you're pointing out how interesting the card backs are. And Rich is pointing out the excellent cartoonists, comic book art people and things like that. Doesn't happen. That you don't say, hey, we're going to put Frank Robinson in there, change the checklist, give me a cartoon, give me some verbiage. All this art is done by hand. It's all paste up. It's not digital art. I've got to get these stylized images for the front. And if it wasn't planned, and if it's a last minute thing, Frank is tearing up the league in May. It's not a Panini Instant or Topps Now. There's lead time for this. And it bumps out somebody else that was planned for it.
Jim brings up an interesting point. Remember, Topps is doing not just baseball on 56. They're doing all these non-sports sets. They're doing football. They have X amount of time at any of their printing presses to make cards. They may have had 2 printing presses, but you still only have X amount of time. I don't remember what all the 56 non-sports sets are. We'll say rails and sails. If that was a 56 set, they're getting that out. They're getting Wild West cards out. They're getting whatever cards they're getting out in non-sports. They're treating every product with importance. And they have to budget how much time they're spending on it. And Jim's right. You have X amount of time on baseball. You don't have baseball product managers in 56. You have Woody Gelman and people like that. And they're doing all the cards in all the sports. You have Cy Berger. He's doing all the cards in all the sports and all the non-sports. So they're spread a little thinner too. Today, Fanatics has brand managers for specific product lines or specific sports. And that's another difference to remember too with Brooks and Frank.
On your rails and sails or any of these others, the only thing I can know is that it's not 57 because it's not standard size.
Right.
So any non-sports sets from the 50s, it's 56 or 55 or 54 if it's the 56 top size. So that's a way to date it, but I don't know if it's 56 or 55 or 50.
Right.
Printing story, the first issue of the Beckett Baseball Card Monthly I printed, and the second issue, I got it to the printer an hour late, bringing the proofs or whatever. And they said, "Oh, you've missed your press time." And I went, "What? I'm just an hour late." I said, "No, our press is tightly scheduled. Something else has your spot. We thought maybe you'd be a little bit late, but we've got room for you in a couple of days." I said, "What?"
Wow.
Taught me a lesson. These presses are very expensive, finely tuned machines, all the prep, all that stuff. If you're not ready, then you could be bumped back a day or two because it's back to back.
Fortunately, in those days, being a day or two late really didn't make a big difference, other than to you.
It did, in the sense that I was not able to carry out a brand promise, be on time and accurate and all that stuff. It wound up bumping it back a week, Rich.
That's significant, even in those days.
So it's coming out in mid-December or something for the December issue of 1984. I felt stupid, and I had to write little letters. I had to stuff in a letter, which that's a collector's item. My letter I put in there to tell the dealers and the collectors, "Sorry, I don't want this to happen again."
You wonder if, because of an efficiency reason, they just looked at the 55 horizontal design and said, "Okay, let's just carry that into 56," because they had so much going on. They just wanted to be more efficient.
Plus, by doing 4 series instead of 2, maybe they were doing less Elvis cards that would have grabbed press time, because why go from 2 series, I think 2 series in 55 to 4 in 56?
I think 55 was 3 series, 1 to 100, 101 to 160 with a few less, 151 to 160, and then 161 to 210.
But I've never found a collection that was just 1 to 100. I probably have found some 1 to 150s or 1 to 160, but not 1 to 100.
If you're a set collector, it's a fascinating master set, because there are 5 different versions of the first series team cards, 1 to 100. If you really want to challenge, get a master set of the whole thing. You're just doing a subset. So you have an easier piece of the pie, so to speak. But there are some hidden cards that are going to be tricky to find along the way. You may only want player Hall of Famers, but just remember, you've got a smaller group, but you can make it wider if you so desire.
Matt, here's my advice for you. If you can, unfortunately, you're going to be sharing the advice with everybody that listens to this, but if you can buy for the same price the player that you want in the first series in the grayback version, and even for a slight premium, jump on it. Same thing like Manlin Mays, the guys in the second series, Campanella, Berra, there's Snyder. There's a bunch of them in the second series. If you can buy for the equivalent grade, if you can get a whiteback second series for the same price or a slight premium, jump on that, because the production scarcity is there. I'm postulating that it's 80-20. You could look at the PSA and BGS pop reports and try to figure out what's been graded. I'm sure there's quite a bit more. How many more is a mystery, but my experience, it's 3 or 4 to 1. To me, that's the better value. When you get in the 50s, I was a master set collector. I collected all the team cards, all the variations, white backs, gray backs, checklist cards.
I don't think I did 56 white and gray backs, which is interesting because I was a master set collector too, but I collected the 62 master set, which was all front based with the green tints and the different poses. So the old saying, buy what you like when the price is right. But the good thing is you can make this very narrow or very wide or anything in between. That's the best part of what you're doing.
Agreed. I'll definitely recreate my checklist with the scarcity. I think that'll be good to know. My little flags will pop up if I see one that's more scarce. So that's helpful, guys.
It'd be stealth. If you advertise it, then they see you coming. They're all beautiful cards. Eye appeal, though, is mostly about the front of the card. So it depends on what you're looking for. If you had a high grade of the tougher back, if that gets auctioned off, it could go for bigger bucks. In the mid grades, it doesn't matter as much, Matt, usually. Jackie Robinson, I had a gray back at one point, and I was offered 10 or 20% more, and I think it should be double. But the world doesn't perceive that at this time yet, I don't think.
From what I've seen and heard, especially just looking for these cards, I rarely see anyone advertising the gray and white back difference. There's a few for sure, but you definitely don't see that as much. To y'all's point, I think there's an opportunity for someone that does the legwork.
Okay.
I think that's the challenge for myself here, and another fun chance to learn more as well.
It's another feather in the cap of 56 tops to where you can really enjoy the pursuit. There's a subtlety there. It's the last of the oversized cards where you got that additional real estate, and I thought they used it well.
They did. That horizontal, it took me a little bit of time to get used to as I was looking through this set specifically and trying to figure out what set I wanted to chase. These cards, I think they've got nearly everything you could want in a set, in a design. Every single card I have currently is just fun to look at. I've got them here in my office and I'm captivated. Every single card. So it definitely is a set worth collecting. I can't say that's the same for other sets, but I think for 56, man, every single card is definitely one that I cherish and look forward to picking up when I see it at shows.
I think a lot of people are not doing exactly what you're doing, but focusing on the players that are Hall of Famers is an easy one to go for, but players that are meaningful to you instead of completing the set, especially the master set. And some of the team cards can get pricey. The checklists are pricey, but if that's not meaningful to you, the mantle is pricey enough as it is. That's your bigger ticket card. Beautiful card.
And my collecting journey has really evolved over time. That's part of the reason why I moved from the T sets. I love my T206 cards, but as I started to look at getting commons, it just didn't really have that excitement for me as well. And my excitement had dulled some. And then I started looking at the 50s set, and all of a sudden, just this joy, excitement, and that passion that you get collecting just came back. Not that I'm completely out of looking at pre-war stuff, but what I'm learning is collecting with meaning. For me, a good example of that was I recently picked up an Al Klein 56 at the Dallas show. And that Klein is really special to me because I'm working on his player run and I'm working on the 56 set. So it checked both boxes there. But the most important thing was I was learning about Al Klein and just understanding his story and his character. As I learned his story, I just got way more excited about picking up a card because now I look at his 56 and I start to think all these stories I've read and the card just comes to life. That's been part of my card collecting journey, is how can I find cards I look at that point me to men of character, men of integrity, just remind me of great truths. That's part of the impetus behind getting some of these 56s or going after the Al Klein run that I'm working on. I couldn't be more excited about it.
Well, Klein, have you ever heard a bad word about Klein?
I can't say I have, except for a few stories in his older years, but we'll give him some credit. And from everything I've read, he walked with humility and modesty, but he also was a darn good ball player. So you add those three together, and that to me is a guy I want to look after and admire.